It always starts with the smell. Not the good kind, not roasted meat or fresh herbs or anything you dream about. No, it's more. Clingy, a little sour, a little burnt, a little everything at once. It's in your cloak, your hands, your hair. Even if you haven't cooked a thing all morning, somehow you still smell like boiled onions and old smoke. So before you get comfortable, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. We're heading back to the medieval kitchen, not the royal feasts or banquet halls, but the dim, drafty corners where pots clanged and broth boiled and some poor soul spent the day trying not to burn the pottage again. You'll ladle soup. That's more water than food. Chop roots that refuse to yield. And try not to trip over the cat who lives under the bread oven. This isn't the glamorous side of history, but it's warm in its own odd way, even if it's mostly from standing too close to the fire. So, settle in, breathe slowly, and take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy this kind of slow, calming storytelling. Now let's go back, not for glory or grandeur, but for the quiet rhythm of a life spent feeding others. The night hasn't quite let go yet. The sky beyond the shutters is still. A deep sort of gray, thick and unsure, the kind that belongs neither to evening nor morning, but somewhere in between. That liminal hour when time feels slow and sleepy and nothing has yet demanded your attention. You open your eyes only part way, not because you're resisting the day, but because the cold makes blinking feel like a task that needs warming up. Above you, the rafters creak softly, old wood shifting against the frost. You can hear a drip, somewhere faint and rhythmic. The slow surrender of moisture from last night's air finding its way down through the thatch. One drop at a time. It makes you wonder where it's landing. You don't look. You've probably patched it before. You'll patch it again. You're still lying in the corner of the kitchen, not out of laziness or punishment, but because it's warmest here, close to the hearth. Or at least it would be if the hearth weren't entirely still. There's no crackling, no amber glow. Just the heavy silence of stone and ash and memories of last night's heat. You pull your thin woolen blanket closer to your chin and breathe out through your nose. The puff of air clouds gently in front of you. Visible, soft, a small ghost that immediately fades. You do it again just to watch. The blanket doesn't really cover you fully. It never has. One foot sticks out, stiff with cold, and your toes curl involuntarily, pressing into the straw-stuffed mattress beneath you. The straw rustles like brittle paper. You shift just a little and feel the unevenness of it beneath your hip bone. The way it has flattened and drifted during the night, gathering oddly near your shoulder. You think about adjusting it, but not seriously. You know you won't, so instead, you sit up slowly, carefully, like someone negotiating with their own spine. Your joints click, knees crackle, and your back gives a quiet protest as you lean forward and run your hand through your hair, which has stuck in odd directions from the night's warmth. You scratch absently at your temple, then reach for your shoes or what passes for them. The leather is stiff from yesterday's damp, but familiar. You slide your feet in and feel the cold bite your soles. No point resisting it. It's just part of the morning. The hearth sits a few feet away. Large, low mouth of stone and soot and habit. Its presence is heavy in the room, even when cold, as though it remembers being alive. You reach toward it, gently brushing the gray heap in the center with the fire poker. Nothing, not even a glowing ember. Pretending to be something more. You lean in and sniff. Just ash. Just yesterday. Just the end of warmth. So you sigh, long and slow, and roll up your sleeves. Time to begin again. You kneel before the hearth like someone at prayer. Not out of reverence, but because you've learned the best angle for coaxing stubborn flames out of cold stone. Your knees press in too. The hard-packed dirt floor, familiar ground, grooved with centuries of quiet kneelings. You know where the good kindling is, hidden behind the pile of cracked twigs and kitchen scraps. You reach into the woven basket and find the driest bundle you can manage. Thin shavings of birch bark, some splinters from yesterday's chopping, and the precious kindling that smells faintly of pine. Your fingers are clumsy from the cold, and you drop a piece. It skitters across the stones like it's trying to escape the day. You stack the twigs just so, not too tight, not too loose. A pyramid that breathes. Then the tinder tucked underneath like a secret. Then your favorite part, the breath. You strike the flint slowly, carefully. 1, 2. Sparks. They flicker and vanish. 3, 4. On the 5th, it catches just barely a glow, no bigger than a pea. You lean in, eyes wide, lips pursed, and you blow. Softly, rhythmically, with the patience of someone who knows it takes time for warmth to want to return. The ember glows, then dims. You wait. Try again. This time, it clings to the bark. A small hiss, a curl of smoke. The sound of something being convinced. The first true flame is barely there, a whisper of orange. But it's enough. You feed it slowly. Let it grow at its own pace. Watch it stretch and crackle and find itself again. You don't smile. Exactly. But there's a warmth behind your ribs now, echoing the one beginning in front of you. The day has started. Weather? You like it or not, you stand and stretch again, slowly. The fire is catching now. You add a log, not too thick, then settle the iron pot onto the hook above the hearth. It swings slightly, as if shaking off a dream. You fill it with water from the bucket by the door. It's cold, painfully so, and you spill a little on your fingers. They sting. While it begins to warm, you turn to the bread. It's not glamorous, this part. Just flour and water and a bit of yesterday's sour leave-on. Saved in a cloth and kept near the fire overnight like a sleeping pet. You unfold the cloth and sniff. It's sharp, alive, sour in that deep, yeasty way that feels older than you are. You tip it into the bowl, add the flour, the water, the salt. Then you knead, not fast, not violently, but with rhythm. With quiet insistence, your hands press and fold, stretch and tuck. The dough pushes back. You feel its resistance. You meet it with your palms. The bench wobbles slightly beneath your weight. The room smells of smoke, and flour dust hangs in the sunbeam trickling through the high window. You keep going until your arms ache, not painfully, just enough to remind you they're yours. Then you shape the dough, round and honest, and cover it with a cloth. You leave it near the hearth, where the air is warmer now, where it might remember to rise. You do not look back at it. Bread, like cats and people, rises best when ignored. Outside the kitchen door, the day is still creeping in sideways. The light is pale, weak, like it doesn't want to commit yet. You crack open the door to throw out the ashes, careful not to breathe too deeply. The wind bites your cheeks. The ash scatters on the air like dust from old books. You pause. It's not a dramatic moment, just a small one. A stretch of your arms, a breath that fogs in front of you, the way your joints. Complain after kneeling, the smell of wood smoke clinging to your sleeves. You blink slowly, look out toward the tree line where the sun is thinking about showing itself. Then, with another soft sigh, you close the door again. Back inside, it smells more like morning by now. The fire is strong enough to be a presence. It crackles gently, a steady hum of life. The water is warm, not boiling yet, but thoughtful. You drop in the oats. Stir with a wooden spoon that always sticks a little, no matter how many times you oil it. The porridge will take time. You sit beside it. On the low stool that's seen more backsides than most thrones, your hands rest in your lap. I listen. To the water bubble, slow and shy at first. You don't rush it. You don't need to. You're not quite hungry yet, not fully. Just hollow in that way that mornings make you. You think of the bread again. You don't lift the cloth. Just trust. You begin to slice the onions for the midday stew. Eyes already bracing for the sting. The knife is dull, but familiar. You cut. Slowly, methodically. Stack the slices in the bowl. Next, a turnip. Then the wild herbs you hung from the rafters 2 weeks ago, now brittle and fragrant. There's no chatter yet, no footsteps. No barking from the outer yard. It's just you and the hearth and the smell of cooking beginnings. It feels like a secret. Our, hidden from the rest of the household. And maybe, in a way, it is. You wipe your hands on your apron, the same spot you always do, now permanently stained with a palette of forgotten meals. You sit again, nearer the fire this time, and hold. Your hands out to it. They hover above the flame. You don't press too close. There's a stillness now, one that feels earned. The bread will rise or it won't. The porridge will thicken or bubble over. The day will come fully and loudly, as it always does, but not. Yet, not just yet. You lean back against the wall, eyes half-lidded, and let the warmth soak into your bones. The hearth is awake now, and so are you. It begins, as so many things do, with a root that doesn't want to be helpful. The turnip sits on the wooden board like a lump of mild defiance, lopsided, knobby, and somehow a little smug. You look at it, it looks back, least it feels like. It does. The knife in your hand is familiar, a bit chipped at the edge. And no longer sharp, exactly, but comfortable in the way your palm wraps around the worn wood handle. It fits your hand like an old memory. You raise it gently, aim, and press down through the pale purple skin. The turnip rocks. Just a little. Then rolls half a turn and stops. Not cut. Not cracked. Just slightly repositioned. Off-center, now unbothered. You sigh, slowly. Not out of anger. There's no room for anger in early morning kitchens. Only patience and repetition. You steady it with your left hand and try again, this time with a little more commitment. The blade sinks in, squeaks once, then finally splits the root in two with the faintest thunk. The halves wobble but stay upright. One victory, many more to go. The window behind you lets in a line of light, angled and low. Not enough to warm the room, but enough to cast long shadows across the chopping board. They move as you move. The turnip's outline looks bigger than it really is. Your hands, hovering, look a bit ghostly in the faint glow dot outside. The world is still mostly quiet. A few distant clucks from the hens, a cough from somewhere past the door. But inside, it's just you and the shapes of things being prepared. A bowl for peelings, a cloth for your sleeves. A pile of vegetables slouch slightly like they've given up on looking tidy. You pull a carrot from the pile. It's not straight. It bends oddly at the top, like it tried to grow around something and never quite recovered. You snap off the green stem and begin to peel, the blade rasping softly with each pass. Orange curls fall to the board like confetti. At a celebration no one's attending. You peel slowly, not to conserve effort, but because there's no need to rush. The fire's already warm. The stew won't begin for another hour. These moments are yours, quiet and undemanding. You slice the carrot. The rounds fall rhythmically, tapping the wood with a soft tick-tick-tick, like a clock you didn't wind on purpose. There is no such thing as a perfect vegetable. They come in twisted, taked bundles. The onions are soft in spots, the parsnips too long or too short, the leeks always a little grittier than you expect. You hold them one by one, brushing soil from their skin, inspecting them as if you're learning a small truth about each. The onion next? You know better than to get sentimental with this one. Already your nose warns you, twitching gently as you peel back the dry outer shell. It crackles in your hands, flakes drifting into the cracks of the table. You have it, and it begins. That familiar sting, quiet at first. Then sharper, your eyes water, they always do. You blink, squint, and keep chopping, wiping your face with your sleeve. A gesture so natural you don't even realize you're doing it. The onion smell rises. Like steam from a bath, rich, sharp, undeniably real. It fills your chest, gets into your hair, lives in your skin. You'll carry it with you for the rest of the day, a badge of morning labor. Others might wrinkle their noses, but to you it's a kind of perfume, pungent, yes, but honest. Chop, slice. Drag, wipe. Your movements settle into a rhythm. A quiet one, not musical, but steady. The sound of a life repeating itself. The knife taps the board. The vegetable shifts. Your hand sweeps the scraps into the bowl. Then again, you begin to lose track of time, not in a dreamy way, but in the way that work becomes a kind of meditation. There's comfort in the repetition, in the knowledge that the parsnip will resist at first, then yield. That the celery root will make your hands itch, that the last potato will be half rotten and need trimming. No surprises, just tasks. And yet, there's something gentle in the ordinariness of it. You hear the fire pop behind you just once. A piece of wood settling. It's a smell of warm ash and root vegetables mingling in the air. You look down and realize your hands have gone a little red from the cold, knuckles stiff and raw from friction. You rub them against your apron, slow and methodical, then return to the work. The board is crowded now. Pieces of turnip, carrot, onion, leek, all chopped and layered, in little piles that look like the most humble sort of mosaic. No colors are bright, just the muted oranges and off-whites of vegetables pulled from the ground and brought inside to become something else. You run your finger along the edge of the blade, not hard enough to cut, just to feel where it has. Dulled again. You'll sharpen it later, probably. Or maybe not. You stretch your back, roll your shoulders, hear something pop that shouldn't, and feel the dull ache of early hunger rising in your belly. Not urgent, just a quiet reminder that you've been working without eating. You take a small sliver of carrot from the board and chew it slowly. It tastes like dirt. A little dot and sweetness, and the beginning of something better. There's a bowl of scraps to your left, peelings and ends and tops. Not waste, exactly, but the parts no one wants. You pick through them absently, separating the useful bits. Some can go into the stock pot. Others will be fed to the pig if the steward remembers. You sit for a moment, elbows on knees, cradling the bowl like something precious. The kitchen is warmer now. The light from the window has shifted. You can hear more noise from outside, soft footsteps, a door creaking. Someone calling to a child. The house is waking. But for now, you still have a moment. Your fingers are stained with onion, carrot juice, with the invisible signature. Of garlic you haven't chopped yet. The nails are short, the knuckles rough. There's a small scar along your thumb that you don't remember earning, only that it has always been there. You wash your hands in the wooden basin, the water cloudy and cold. The chill bites the cuticle. You splash once on your face, not to wake yourself, but because it feels good in the way uncomfortable things sometimes do. Like stretching a sore limb, or chewing on ice, you dry them on your apron and look back at your board. The vegetables are waiting, but they're ready now, and so are you. You gather the chopped roots into a wooden bowl. They slide together softly, tumbling in a way that feels satisfying. Like things finding their place, you cover them with a cloth. Nothing fancy, just linen, stained and soft from many mornings like this. They'll sit by the hearth now, waiting for the stew pot. And you'll move on maybe to scrubbing the pan, or fetching the salt, or kneeling again to feed the fire. But for now, there's a stillness in your chest. You look down at the board, empty now, but clean. The table around it is flecked, with bits of peel and flour dust and little circles of carrot skin. It is not tidy, but it is honest, and that, in a cook's life, is often the closest thing to peace. You step back, roll your shoulders again, and stretch until your back gives a satisfying creak. The bowl of chopped roots rests like a quiet promise near the fire. The spoon waits on its hook. The air smells deeply of onion and of something else, something subtle and old, a kind of morning satisfaction that doesn't announce itself. It just is. You wipe the blade, place it back in its spot, fold the cloth, dust off the board. The kitchen is ready, and so, in a small, humble way, are you. You don't remember a time when there wasn't smoke in the kitchen, even when the hearth isn't lit, even when the air is still and the embers are long gone. There's always some hint of it lingering, clinging to the beams above, nestled deep in the fibers of your apron, smudged behind your ears, under your fingernails, in the soft folds where your clothes hang. It's not the smoke itself that surprises you anymore. It's the silence before it, the kind of quiet that lives in a hearth before a fire begins. Cold, still, almost judgmental. You kneel before it. Again, not because it's your job, though it is, but because the day doesn't move forward without it. You sit back on your heels and exhale through your nose. Your breath fogs the air. Between you and the gray stone, you reach for the kindling, your fingers already knowing which twigs are dry and which are pretending. And so begins the long and often thankless business of fire. The fire should catch. In theory, you've built the pyramid as you always do. Dry twigs in a careful teepee. Bark shavings underneath, curling up at the edges like paper scrolls. A bundle of dry moss tucked in the center, an old trick you learned by watching someone older. Someone who could start a fire in the rain and make it look like breathing. You strike the flint. Once, twice, a few sparks. They jump and vanish. The moss darkens slightly, but does nothing else. You lean closer. Closer still. You strike again. This time it catches, just barely a glow no larger than the tip of your smallest fingernail. It flutters like a leaf, then goes dark again. You blow, gently, the way you'd soothe a baby fussing in their sleep. Not too hard, not too quick. Just warm breath, long and slow. With the rhythm of an old lullaby, then the ember sighs into light. Then the smoke begins. It rises like a small rebellion, not aggressive, just defiant. A gray-blue ribbon that swirls up past your face and into your lashes. It stings gently, not enough to make you cry, but enough to squint, to pause, to blink a few times and rub your eye with the back of your hand. You sit back a bit, wiping your sleeve across your forehead, even though there's no sweat yet. Not yet. The sting of smoke lives differently than heat. It settles, tucks itself into the corners of your face, whispers reminders throughout the day. You lean in again, blinking through it, and gently feed the fire. A slightly thicker stick. Another. Curl of bark. You blow once more, softer still, and the flame answers you, growing, not with speed, but with stubbornness, and there it is, a little fire, not a blaze. Just enough. You rock back on your heels again, careful not to knock over the tinderbox, and let your weight settle into your knees. The smoke, still, is everywhere. You reach behind you for a few more logs. Not too large, not too green. You've done this long enough to know which ones will crackle and warm and which will hiss like offended cats. You hold one in your hand, press your thumb to the grain. Damp, of course it is. You sigh, the kind that sounds more like air escaping from your chest than frustration. You set it aside and pick another. This one is slightly better, less weight. In the wood, less reluctance. You knock it gently on the stone floor and hear the sound it makes. Solid, hollow, just right. You add it to the fire. It doesn't thank you, but it doesn't protest either. It simply begins. The smoke curls again. You can taste it now, just slightly, that sharp temp that cuts across your tongue and settles into the back of your throat like a dusty memory. Not painful, just familiar. You wonder if your eyebrows smell like bacon again. Probably. You don't check. You wipe your face again, not with a cloth, just with your hand, out of habit. You feel the fine grit of ash on your cheeks, along your nose. You run a finger across your eyebrow and come away with a faint black streak. Your eyelids feel heavy, like they've been dusted with flour. But it's not flour, it's soot. You blink. Again, the fire crackles. You look down at your hands, not dirty, exactly, just fire-colored. Brown and gray at the fingertips, a little shine from the oils in the wood. You stretch your fingers, flex your wrists. No burns, no splinters, just the gentle stiffness of morning labor. You press your palms against your thighs. Leave to faint smudges on the cloth and nod quietly to yourself. Fire's going now. That's something. There's a smell that only happens at this exact point. After the smoke, before the boiling. A middle moment, delicate and short. It smells like earth, like bark, like iron warmed by air. It wraps around you, not in a comforting way, but in a knowing one. As if the room itself is saying, yes, this, again, good. You breathe in through your nose, shallow at first, then deeper. The air still stings a little. Your throat feels lined in old wood, but it's cleaner now. The smoke is thinning. The fire is settling into itself, no longer fighting, just burning. You sit beside it, watching. You don't need to stir anything yet. The pot hasn't even been filled. But the fire, it's alive now, steady, quiet, proud. You lean forward slightly and hold your hands near the flame. They are raw, but warm, that will do. You stand up slowly, joints popping with the effort, and walk to the corner where the wood is stored. Not in a neat stack. Not anymore. It slouches like a tired beast, logs rolling into one another, shedding bark like dandruff. You crouch, pick up an armful, not too much, or you'll drop something and bring it back to the hearth. The walk is short, but the logs dig in too. Your arms a little, pressing faint ridges into your skin. You set them down gently. You feed the fire. One at a time, like letters into a box, each piece accepted with a crack. Or a sizzle, each piece earning its place. The smoke isn't thick anymore. But it lingers, curling lazily through the rafters like a cat unsure of its next nap spot. Your eyes are watering again, not from fresh smoke, but from the accumulation of it. A morning of stinging. You blink and blink and blink again, feeling the weight on your lids. There's no one here to see it. No one to hand you a cloth or offer kind words. Just the fire. Just the quiet. Just the work. And somehow, that's enough. You wipe your eyes with the crook of your arm. Sit back again. The firelight dances softly now, not wildly. Just enough to cast shadows across the floor. You watch them move like ghosts with nowhere to be. Now that it's going, the fire doesn't need much. A nudge here. A log repositioned. A little ash scooped from the edge with the iron shovel. You tend it like a child who's finally gone quiet. Not asleep, not fussy, just content. Watching the flame is like listening to someone breathe. Slow, steady, with occasional shifts. You could sit here for hours. You probably won't, but you could. You watch the red glow deepen. The black edges of the wood curl inwards. The pot above the flame rocks gently, not yet full, not yet boiling, but ready. You add another stick. It's because, Dottie, you hold your hands. Up again. Not to warm them this time, but to examine them. They look like they belong to someone who's been working, which is true. They smell like ash, like split pine, like last year's soot and today's kindling. You run your finger along. The inside of your palm, the skin is rough, soft only at the tips. You like that feeling? To remind you that something got done today. And even if it's only fire, that's enough. Later today, someone will walk through the kitchen and wrinkle their nose. Complain about the draft, or the smoke, or the way the room always smells like a burning forest floor. They'll mutter about open chimneys and poor stonework and the smell of tit. A smell of cooked cook. You'll nod and smile, because this is your world. The flicker, the crackle, the sting. The rhythm of breath and heat and hands and fuel. It's not elegant, but it's yours. It doesn't roar. That's not its job. It keeps going, softly, steadily, like an old friend telling a familiar story. You stop listening for the words after a while. You just let the rhythm carry you. You sit one last time before the hearth. Pull your knees up close. Rest your cheek against the rough sleeve of your tunic and close your eyes, only for a minute. There is warmth now. There is fire. And though your eyes are still rimmed with soot, and your hair smells like the inside of a chimney, you feel, in some small, quiet way, clean. The pot is already there when you shuffle over to it, sitting at the edge of the hearth, wide and thick, like it's been waiting for you all morning. It's one of the older ones, blackened on the bottom, with a dented rim and a handle that never quite sits right in its hooks. You don't remember when it became yours to tend, only that it has been for long enough that you no longer question it. You squat down, arms aching from the earlier chopping, and give the pot a nudge with the iron poker. It shifts slightly, but holds firm like it too is tired of moving. You place your hand above it just to feel, not hot yet, barely warm. The fire beneath crackles politely, pretending to help. The lid rests beside it, upside down and streaked. With old use, you lift the pot slightly with both hands. It's heavier than you expect every single time. Water sloshes gently inside, not full, but enough to matter. You feel the weight in your arms, your back, your wrists. You ease it into place over the fire, hook it onto the swing arm, and settle it just right, not too close, not too far. Then you wait, not because you want to, because you must. It doesn't look like it's doing anything. You know better. You kneel there, elbows on your thighs, watching the surface of the water like it might reveal something if you squint long enough. There's no movement yet, no ripples, no hiss. Just the smooth, indifferent surface reflecting a pale, warped version of your face. You tilt your head. Nothing. You stir. The spoon is long and wooden, with a crack along the handle that you've grown fond of. It's smoother than it should be, worn down where your hand always grips it. You run it once around the edge of the pot, scraping softly at the bottom. You feel resistance, not burning, just texture. Bits of barley maybe, a stray cabbage leaf, the beginning of something. You lift the spoon. Nothing clings to it yet, still too soon. You set it down beside you carefully and cross your arms. You watch, still nothing. There's a mystery to boiling that you've never quite solved. You've tried patience, you've tried prayer. You've tried whispering soft threats under your breath, but it never bubbles when you want it to. It waits. It lingers in that in-between state, where you can see the shimmer beneath the surface, a tremble in the water's skin, but it won't commit. You lean closer. You think you see a bubble rise, just one. Then nothing. You stir again, slower. This time, more out of habit than hope. You begin to name the ingredients in your mind. Barley, dried cabbage, a bit of onion, salt, maybe the heel of a carrot if one survived the morning. The water smells faintly of all of them, like a memory trying to become a meal. You close your eyes for a moment. Still no boil. You shift your weight. Lean back on your heels, and then rise slowly, knees complaining as you do. You stand with your arms crossed, not out of authority, but for lack of something better to do with your hands. It's a stance you've inherited from cooks older than you. The quiet, resigned pose of someone locked in a silent argument with a pot. You stare at it, willing it to do something it doesn't. You think about all the times this has happened before. Pots that refused to boil until your back was turned. Stews that waited until you blinked. Soups that seemed to mock your attention. You cross and uncross your arms. Shift your weight again. You sigh, loudly this time. Still nothing, so finally. You do the only thing that ever seems to work. You look away. You reach for the salt jar. You pick a thread off your sleeve. You walk 3 steps to the table to wipe a spot that's been there for days. Anything to pretend you don't care. And of course, that's when it happens. You hear it first, that soft blub, then another, then a tiny, treacherous sput. You spin back toward it. It's too fast for someone your age. The pot has started to boil, and in that same moment, it spits. Not hard, not violently. Just enough to send a little hiss of water over the side, down the curve of the pot, onto the hearthstone below. It sizzles there, smelling of cabbage and quiet betrayal. You step forward with the spoon in hand. You stir. The stew is beginning to take shape now. The barley swirls slowly, rising and sinking with the movement of your spoon. The leaves of cabbage soften, turning translucent at the edges. The scent is stronger now, still humble, but deeper. Steam curls up in gentle clouds, wrapping around your wrist as you lean in. You move in circles, always circles. Scraping the bottom, nudging the sides. Lifting the heavy spoon, then letting it sink again. A rhythm so ingrained that you could do it with your eyes closed, and maybe you will. Eventually, you dip the spoon and lift a bit of broth to your lips. It's hot, almost too hot. You blow softly, then sip. It tastes like warmth, like work, like something that didn't want to happen, but finally did. You nod to yourself. Now that it's boiling, it will need watching. But not too closely. You've learned that pots do not like to feel supervised. You give it a last stir and step back. Not far, just a few feet. Enough to let it feel alone. You take a seat on the low stool, the one with the wobbly leg and the cushion that used to be stuffed, with straw but now seems to be mostly air. You sit, elbows on knees, chin in hand. You listen. The stew simmers with a sound you've grown to love. A slow, quiet, bubbling. Not frantic, not loud, just steady. Like a cat purring from the other side of the room, you let the warmth reach. You close your eyes, not to sleep, just to pause. The scent of boiling barley drifts around you. You hear the pop of a log shifting in the fire. A drip from the ceiling, somewhere far off, as yesterday's frost melts into the rafters. The occasional creak of wood, not the house shifting, just the kitchen breathing. You sit like that for a while, just you. The pot, the fire. The air, everything feels held in place. Everything feels fine. There's a kind of tending that doesn't require action. You glance at the pot now and then. You watch the steam rise and dissipate. You feel its presence without hovering. You know when it's ready to be stirred and when it's better left alone. You don't rush. You don't intervene. You trust. It took years to learn that kind of trust in food, in heat, in the quiet rhythm of things that take their time. In yourself, you still check the bottom now and then, but more out of habit than worry. The stew is holding steady. So are you. The scent has changed again. It's richer now, fuller. The barley has burst, softened at the edges. The cabbage has melted into the broth. The onion has disappeared, leaving only its sweetness behind. Salt lingers at the edge of your tongue, even without tasting it. The pot no longer simmers angrily. It breathes. You lift the lid once more, just to peek, and are greeted with a soft rush of steam that fogs your face. You blink and smile. The pot gurgles, content, You stir again. Just a few turns. Not to change anything, just to say hello. There's always a bit of spillage. Always. You notice it after the fact. A darkened streak down the side of the pot. A hiss where broth met hearthstone. You wipe it with a cloth that already smells like dozens of past spills. It leaves a damp streak behind. You forgive the pot, not out loud. Just in the quiet way one forgives old friends for doing what they always do. You let it bubble on, eventually. You have to step away. There are other things to do. The bread needs tending, the spoons need scrubbing. Someone might come through asking when the meal will be done. You'll answer with a nod, maybe a few words, maybe just a shrug, but you'll glance back at the pot as you go, and it will keep going, just as it always does. It begins, as it always does, with flour on the table, a light dusting, then a deeper pile. Then the gentle craters left by your fingers as you reach in with both hands to stir it together. It smells like nothing at first, clean, dry, faintly. Musty in a way that's hard to describe, but oddly comforting. Your palms spread it across the board. Some drifts to the floor. A puff of white floats up in the morning light, catching in the air like mist. You breathe it in through your nose, slow and careful. It stings a little soft but sharp and settles somewhere near your sinuses where all good things eventually land. The sour starter sits nearby. It's older than you care to admit. A living, breathing thing that smells like old fruit and new dreams. You lift the cloth from its bowl and give it a sniff. It puckers your nose. That's good. Sharp means alive. You add it to the flour, then the water. Lukewarm, just enough and a touch of salt. Because even hope needs something to lean on. You begin to mix. You knead with your whole body, not all at once, but over time, palms pressing, heels of your hands, folding the dough over on itself, then again, then again. You lean your weight into it gently, like someone pushing a friend on a swing. The dough doesn't resist, not exactly. It pushes back. It argues, but quietly, the way a child might mumble when told to clean their room. You knead through it. Through the stickiness, through the stubbornness, your arms begin to ache, but not badly. Just enough to remind you that this is effort. That bread, like fire, doesn't come from wishing. You pause now and then, not to rest, but to listen. The dough makes a sound when you press it, soft, sighing, like wet cloth being wrung out. You don't know why you love that sound, but you do. It's always quieter than you remember. When it finally feels smooth enough, springy in places. Still dense in others, you shape it into a ball. Not perfect, but honest. You place it in a bowl that was probably meant for something else. A salad bowl once, maybe soup. You're not sure. You cover it with cloth, old linen. Washed so many times it no longer smells like anything in particular, just warmth. You tuck it in gently, as if the dough could feel your tenderness, as if it might rise faster with a little affection. You carry it to the hearth, but not too close. It's close enough to feel the fire's leftover breath. You set it on the ledge, adjust the cloth, and step back. Then you wait and you hope. You've learned over time not to expect too much from dough. It does what it wants, when it wants. If it wants, you busy yourself with other things. Wipe down the board. Stack the bowls. Stir the soup you forgot you had going. Everything smells faintly of flour now, that warm, papery scent that wraps itself around the edges of the room. But you keep glancing at the bowl. Nothing, you shift its position. Just a little. Still nothing, you whisper softly, to no one in particular. Come on now, does not reply. An hour passes. Maybe more. You check again, lifting the cloth just slightly. Your breath catches, not from anticipation, but from a kind of quiet dread. And there it is, the dough, still dough, not doubled, not proud. Just sitting there, faintly damp, a little heavier. Maybe a little puffier at the sides if you squint, but mostly the same. You look at it. It looks back. You sigh. A long one. You cover it again, slower this time. You don't scold it. That never helps. You just walk away and try not to think about the bread it could have been. You've seen better bread. You've smelled it rising like a cloud in someone else's kitchen. You've watched dough swell like a promise, its skin stretching and cracking just a little under the cloth. You've heard the sound it makes when it's shaped and set in the oven, a faint hiss like it's ready for the next part. Your dough has never made that sound. Yours is the quiet kind, the slow kind, the kind that might rise eventually, or not. You think about the bread from the abbey. You think about the one time you were given a crust from the manor, golden, airy. Whisper light inside. You do not resent those breads. Not really. You just wish yours would join their ranks. Once, just once. It's been long enough, too long, probably. You uncover the bowl again. The dough hasn't changed much, maybe a little more puffy. Maybe, if you tilt your head, you prod it with a fingertip. It springs back, reluctantly. Good enough. You dust the board. Spill more flour than you mean to. Set the dough down like you're not disappointed in it. Shape it gently. It sticks to your fingers, pulls at your skin, resists. You shape it anyway, round, honest. You set it on the peel, or the board, or whatever you're using today. You make the shallow cuts with a small, dull knife. You don't speak, you just bake. You don't trust the oven today. You open its door. Feel the breath of it, hot, uneven, familiar. It smells of everything that's ever been baked before. You wonder if it remembers the good loaves. You wonder if it knows this one might not be. You slide the dough in. It slouches slightly on the stone. You shut the door and wait, and do not look back. There's no sound at first. Then, after a while, a hiss. Then a soft pop. Then nothing. You wait, elbows on the table, chin in your palm. The room feels warm now, uncomfortably so. But you don't open the door. You just sit there, listening to a loaf that may or may not be trying. You can't bring yourself to hope, but you're too stubborn to stop after a while. The smell reaches you. It's not magnificent, not sweet, but it's warm and clean. A bit of barley, a bit of salt. The edges of a crust you've smelled 100 times. You open the door, it's brown. Not golden, not perfect, but brown enough. You tap it, it sounds. Hollow dashish, that will do. You pull it from the oven, you don't plate it, you don't display it. You don't fan the steam or brush it with fat. You set it on the board and let it sit. You sit to dot the room feels calmer now. The flour has settled. The air smells vaguely like success. You run a hand through your hair. There's a dusting of white on your eyebrow. You leave it, you pick up the bread. Still warm, still a little heavy, but real, you tear off a piece. You chew it tastes, like bread, which is to say, like effort, like patience. Like maybe, next time, it'll rise just a little more. But even if it doesn't, it's warm. It's bread. It'll do. It's not loud now, not bustling, not frenzied. Just quiet in that particular way. Kitchens sometimes are not empty. Just in between things. The bread has been baked. The stew is simmering. There's nothing urgent pulling at you. No one calling your name. And yet, your hands keep moving. Not because they must, but because they know what to do. You reach for a cloth, still damp from its last rinse, and begin wiping the same board you've wiped 100 times before. It's stained from years of use. The surface grooved and darkened, but it responds like it always does. A bit cleaner with each slow circle. The kind of cleaning that never quite finishes, and never quite needs to. Your feet shift on the flagstone. Floor, finding the worn dips your body has memorized without your consent. You wipe, you pause. You move again. At the edge of the room, a wooden basin waits. It's perched on a low stool that wobbles if you step too heavily, and beside it is a bucket of water that's never quite clean, never quite dirty. You bend to it, kneeling like you're about to say a prayer. The bowl you carry is warm from the fire, greasy at the rim. You dip it gently, letting the water find the curves and edges, listening to the soft slosh as it meets wood. Your fingers work the cloth around the grain of the bowl, careful not to soak it, just enough to lift the slickness of stew and breadcrumbs. Not enough to ruin the wood. You lift it, inspect. Satisfied, one bowl down. 7 or 8 more to go. You don't count. You never do. There's a rhythm here, a pace that doesn't need measuring. You rinse, wipe, place aside again and again. The pile of utensils is modest, a handful of wooden spoons, 2 ladles, 3 knives with dull blades and nicked handles. You sit cross-legged beside them on the floor, the hearthlight soft on your hands. You don't look closely. You don't have to. Your fingers know the difference by now. Spoons are rounded at the end. Knives are thinner, flatter. The ladles have that odd hook where the thumb settles naturally. You sort them with the kind of attention that doesn't feel like thinking. Spoons in one pile, knives in another. You run your fingers along the handles, checking for cracks. You know which ones have splinters. You know which one leans to the left when stirred. You know all of them, the way you know the unevenness of your own gait. There's comfort in that. You don't speak. There's no one to speak to. But if there were, you still might not. Some tasks prefer silence. There's a cloth draped across your shoulder. It smells faintly of lard and bay leaf and fire. You used it hours ago to lift a pot from the coals, then forgot it was there. Now it's your drying cloth. You press it gently to the sides of each washed item, letting the warmth from your palms do the rest. It's not dry, but it's not dripping. It's good enough. You fold it in thirds as you work, always turning to a clean patch. You've done this for so long that even the folds feel familiar, like steps in a dance you didn't know you were learning. One spoon keeps catching your eye. It has a hairline crack running down its bowl, a quiet flaw that makes it less useful but not quite useless. You consider throwing it out. You don't. You set it aside. Maybe you'll sand it down later. Maybe you'll give it to the scullery boy. Or maybe it'll disappear into the kindling pile when no one's looking. For now, it stays, even broken. Things can stir soup. You rise again, stretching your back, pressing your palms into your spine until you hear the soft crunch of relief. A broom leans against the wall, the same one you've used for weeks. Its bristles are uneven. A few hang by a thread. But it works. You begin at the far end of the room, near the window where the morning light has faded into mid-afternoon dullness. You sweep in long, gentle strokes. Dust and crumbs gather like a tide, slow and inevitable. You pause to pick up a stray onion peel. Tuck it into your apron pocket. Keep going. The sound of the broom is almost musical. A soft drag, a whisper. Hush. You sweep it all into a little heap and use the edge of your hand to gather it onto the pan. You do this without looking. Your body remembers. You sit again, not from exhaustion, just from the need to be still. The fire is still going. Lazy now. Content. The pot above it bubbles quietly, occasionally reminding you of its presence with a hiss or a soft glug. You don't stir it. Not yet. You hold your hands near the flame and watch the heat move across your knuckles. Your nails are rimmed with soot. There's flour in the creases of your skin. You don't clean it off. It belongs there. A map of your day, drawn in dust and broth and ash. You lift the basin and pour the water out the back door. It spills in a clumsy sheet, darker than it went in. Bits of food and soap float down the steps, disappearing into the dirt. You watch it go. The breeze touches your face, cool, not cold. A reminder that the day is still moving, even if you aren't. You smell yourself, not out of vanity, just awareness. You smell like soap and smoke. And a little like onions. You shrug. There are worse things to carry. You hang the cloth on a peg. It droops heavily, tired from doing what cloths do. You run your fingers along its edge, smoothing it down, like you're tucking in a child. You take a deep breath, the kind that rises slowly from the belly. Then you turn back to the kitchen. There's always more to do, but not all of it needs doing now. There's a small crack in the edge of the table. You trace it with your thumb, not to fix it, but to remember it's there. You press gently until a splinter lifts. You leave it. It's part of the room now, like the squeaky floorboard, like the hook that always falls. Nothing in this kitchen is perfect. That's why it feels so much like home. You step back once everything is done, or at least paused. The spoons are in their jar. The bowls are stacked. The broom leans where it always does. You glance around the room. Nothing glows, nothing shines, nothing sparkles. But everything is in place. That's enough. You sit once more. And this time, you let yourself do nothing. Truly nothing. For a while, just you. The hearth and the hum of a job quietly, calmly done. You dip the ladle in without really thinking. The motion is smooth, practiced your wrist turning just enough to lift. Your fingers adjusting for weight. The broth inside sloshes gently, still steaming, still finding itself. You bring the spoon close, blow softly, and sip. Too salty. No, not too salty, but just on the edge. You nod to yourself and set the ladle back in place. Not loudly, not with a clatter. Just a quiet rest on the hook beside the hearth. That taste didn't count. It never does. It wasn't for you. It was for the food, for the dish, for the others. It's strange how you can spend hours cooking something and not really eat it. Not properly. But then again, that's not what cooking is. Here, your stomach makes a sound. A quiet one, but enough to remind you it exists. You've been near food all morning, in it, around it, breathing it, but not a proper bite has passed. Your lips, the kitchen smells like everything at once. Warm cheese, boiled barley, fresh bread, sweet root vegetables. But it hasn't entered you in any real way. Just the edges. A pinch of flour licked from a fingertip. The smear of butter scraped from a knife. A soft heel of bread, tougher than you'd prefer. Eaten while standing, it doesn't satisfy, but it keeps the hunger from becoming loud instead. It hums quietly in the background, like the low, slow purr of the fire you keep feeding. Always there, never shouting, just present. You lift the ladle again, this time slower, this time deliberately. The soup has thickened. It clings to the spoon in a way that says it's closer to ready. You turn your wrist, let it slide down. Then raise it again for another test. You close your eyes, just for a second. You sip. Still need something. You pinch a little salt, not much, just 2 fingers worth, and drop it in. You stir with the kind of patience only cooks seem to have. Not lazy, just rhythmic. Like turning pages in a book you've already read, but still enjoy. You taste again, better still not for you. You reach for the cheese. Not much of it, just a small heel that will be grated into something later. You shave a corner off with your fingernail. Press it to your tongue. Sharp, crumbly. A little too old, but good enough to blend in. You don't eat the rest. You set it aside. Return to the bowl. Scrape off the edges of what's browning. You nibble the tiniest piece. A corner. A crust, it disappears in your mouth before you even know. If it was satisfying, but it's something. You remind yourself that the cook always gets the scraps. That's fair, isn't it? It's not a complaint, just an observation. When you taste, you think about them, the ones who'll sit at the long table later. The ones who will eat and complain and ask for more or less and never know which hand stirred the pot you cook for their tongues. Not yours. You think about their preferences, their distastes, their habits. One doesn't like too much garlic. One always eats the crusts first. One licks their bowl, even if they think no one sees. You taste for them, to make it just right for their mouths, even if yours stays empty. There's a loaf cooling near the window. Not perfect. A little too dark on one side, but the smell is kind. The warmth still lingers in its crust. You tear off a corner, not enough to notice, not enough for anyone to miss. It crunches softly as you chew. It flakes. It dissolves. You swallow before you've had the chance to enjoy it. Still not full. Still not eating. There are days when it feels like smell alone keeps you alive. You breathe. It all in the warm edge of stewed leeks. The sweetness of roasting parsnips, the earthy scent of lentils softening in the back pot. It all feels like food, in a way, like memory made edible. Your belly doesn't think so, but your mind tries. You think of how strange it is to be surrounded by meals and still feel empty. You hold the spoon again, not the ladle. Just a small one, wooden, slightly scorched on one edge from resting too long beside the fire. It fits your hand, curves the way you like. You dip it into the edge of the stew and pull a small taste. You blow, you sip, it tastes. Fine, not perfect, but fine. You think, just for a moment, about what it would be like to have a full bowl of it. Just for yourself, to sit, to eat slowly, without rush. Without watching someone else's portion out of the corner of your eye. But you one single, quotes the cook, doesn't eat like that. Not here. You remember the last meal that filled you. Not clearly. Just enough it was bread and butter eaten outside. Or maybe cheese and barley. Or just something warm in a bowl when no one else needed feeding first. You think of how you chewed slowly, how the steam rose into your eyes. How your body relaxed as it filled. How rare that feeling has become. You smile a little, then let the memory pass. There are still spoons to stir. You walk the kitchen again. Pacing, not patrolling. Checking the pots, nudging the lids. Everything is in place. But nothing is yours. You take a sip here, a lick there, a pinch, a crumble. Still not eating, you sweep the crumbs from the counter into your palm and let them fall outside. You glance at the bread again, but don't reach for it. You step past the cheese, past the stewing onions, past the bowl with the cracked rim that still smells like last night's gravy. None of it calls to you, not really. The light shifts, the day deepens. Voices begin to rise outside, low, laughing, growing closer. They'll eat soon, you'll serve, you'll ladle the stew. Pass the bread, smile at the compliments, nod at the complaints. You'll wipe the table, scrub the bowls, rinse the spoons, and afterward, when the room is quiet again, you might sit. And maybe, just maybe, you'll tear off another crust. Sip the last inch of broth from the pot's corner. Nibble a piece of cheese that went unclaimed. It won't be enough, but it will be. Something. You press your hand gently to your stomach. It's quiet now, but not content, still humming. Still. Waiting. You do not apologize to it. You just say softly, inside your own thoughts. Later. And you hope you mean it. The room is still, or nearly still. You're not standing exactly, more leaning. Your hip resting against the edge of the old oak table. Its corner worn smooth from years of weight. One hand on your hip, the other holding the spoon. Stirring, not yet. You listen not to voices, not to words, but to sounds that are older, more elemental. The soft clink of iron warming, the faint breath of the fire as it shifts, the bowl settling into its own temperature, and the pot, that big, round pot, squatting over the flame like it has opinions. You don't watch it. You don't want to. This part is not for the eyes. You hold the wooden spoon lightly between your fingers. It's not your best one, a bit scorched, the edge worn unevenly, but your hand likes how it fits, familiar, solid, a bit heavier on one side, which means you always stir clockwise. You touch the spoon gently to the surface of the stew, not to stir it, not yet, but to listen. Yes, listen. The spoon carries sound differently. It taps back, faintly, like a heartbeat under thick wool. A rhythm you didn't know you could hear until you started noticing. You press it down. The bubbles haven't broken yet, but you can feel them, just below, hesitating. That moment, right before the first boil, is one of the quietest. It's kinds of tension. It doesn't ask for your attention. It just waits. Not the loud, angry boil. Not the kind that ruins milk or splits peas or calls you over in a panic. Not that. You're waiting for the other boil, the slow one, the friendly one, the one that says the flavors are mingling properly, that the broth has thickened just enough to count, that the barley has softened from resistance into agreement. It starts with a bloop, not a pop, not a hiss. A bloop, soft round, like a bubble sighing its way to the surface. You hear it now, not directly, a T, but you feel it, like a murmur in your jawbone. You lean in, closer, and the sound becomes clearer. One bloop, then another, then silence, then to bloops, dot starting. You close your eyes just to see better. Not everything in cooking is done with sight. In fact, the more years that pass, the more you trust your other senses. Your ears, your hands, even the memory in your arms that remembers how a stew should move. With your eyes closed, the sounds deepen. You hear the faint bubble of stew. You hear the lazy tap of a spoon against the edge of the pot. Not yours, not yet, but echoing from when you did it earlier. You hear your own breath, slow and warm against your lip. You hear the sound of hunger, not yours exactly, but the kind that floats through a kitchen. That low, background wanting that hangs around the hearth, waiting for bowls to fill. Then comes another sound. A different pan. One you placed off to the side, a bit of fat heating on a flat piece of iron. Something simple. Onions, maybe. Or bits of leftover ham, meant to crisp before joining the larger stew. It hisses sharply, just once, then quiets, then again. This sound is different, more insistent. It demands your attention in a way boiling doesn't. Boiling is patient. Fat is not you move toward it, but not quickly. Never quickly. You arrive just as the edges begin to brown. You scrape the pan with the back of the spoon. The sound is scratchy, sharp, metallic. You tilt the pan, let the fat roll into the corner. Then pour it slowly into the pot. The pot sizzles in return. It has heard you, it has accepted your offering. You stir again. Finally, one full. Slow. Circle. Then another. You pause at the same spot each time, tapping the spoon against the pot's edge once, then twice. Tap, ... like a sleepy metronome, keeping rhythm, marking time. You do this not to time anything, but to reassure yourself that something is being timed, that even if the stew has no clock, your body knows the pace. Tap, tap, a pause. Then again, the kitchen becomes a symphony of soft, repetitive sounds. The spoon to boil, the hiss ... and beneath it all, the silence of walls that have heard this. Many times before now, it's no longer shy. The bloops come faster. Not loud, not violent, just frequent. They rise to the surface, break gently, and vanish. The surface of the stew moves like thick fabric in a breeze. You stir once more. Feel the barley bounce against the spoon. You're tempted to taste, but you don't. Not yet. You're not here to eat. You're here to listen. The stew will tell. When it's done, you step back. Let the pot speak. You rest your hands on your hips again. Or maybe you cross your arms. It doesn't matter. You're in the posture of waiting now. Not passive, but patient. The kitchen feels fuller now. The fire crackles in soft rhythm. A kettle nearby lets out a puff of steam. Somewhere, a bench creaks. No one's sitting on it. But the wood has its own size. The stew continues to speak. You listen, not with worry, not with haste, just with practice. Someone else would call this silence, but you know better. They'd walk into this room and hear nothing worth hearing. No conversation, no laughter, no music, but you hear the breath of fire as it shifts through the logs, the lid of the pot rattling. Just once, then settling, the faint scrape of steam rising against the stone wall, the nearing perceptible boil of something becoming edible. This is not silence. This is sound. Grown soft from familiarity, finally. You do taste. You scoop a little broth from the edge of the pot, where it bubbles less. You bring it to your lips. Blow across the surface and sip. It's ready. Not done, not fully, but ready. You feel the warmth move down your throat. Not hot enough to burn, just enough to settle behind your sternum like a lantern. Lighting itself, you say nothing, but your body relaxes. The stew has spoken, and you've heard it. You've put the spoon down, not far, not away, just. You wipe your hands slowly on the cloth, tucked into your belt. You stretch your arms. You listen once more to the pot, still bubbling, still breathing, and step away. You glance out the window. No one there yet. Good. The kitchen can have this quiet a little longer. Just a little. Just enough. It lives on the high shelf, always closed, always quiet. A little box, unassuming to anyone who doesn't know. Warden, worn. A brass latch that clicks in a way you remember by sound, not sight. You're not sure who made it, someone long gone. Probably the hinges creak, but only a little. The lid is heavier than you'd expect. It doesn't swing open easily. It's the kind of box that wants to be opened slowly, and it's not yours. Not really. You don't have the key. That belongs to the steward. The steward who arrives with a ring of keys at his hip, and the slow, deliberate pace of someone who knows his power rests in keeping things just out of reach. You hear him before you see him. The gentle jingle, the scuff of his boots on the stone floor. A sigh, as if unlocking a box is a favor to you. Not a task for him. He places the key into the brass lock and turns it. That soft metallic click is one of the most satisfying sounds you know. It doesn't signal freedom, but it signals access, which is close. You open the lid with both hands, carefully, slowly, like you're about to disturb something sacred, and maybe you are. The first thing that hits you is the smell. Not one smell, many. They don't rise like steam, but leap. In their own way, warm, sharp, bright, sweet. An invisible bouquet of things that don't belong to your usual world of onions and root vegetables and briny salt. You inhale and blink. You don't know where these spices come from. Not exactly. Only that they are from somewhere else. Far, far away. Saffron, delicate and thread-like. A color that shouldn't exist in nature. Cinnamon, curled like bark that smells of memory. Cloves, dark and hard and sharp, like little nails made of warmth. Nutmeg, if you're lucky, whole and heavy, like a tiny stone. Something else you don't even recognize. Pale, curled, bittersweet. The name whispered once and already forgotten. You never get much. Just a pinch, a spoon's backworth. Enough to perfume, not transform. You don't ask for more, because even the smell is a gift. You scoop with care, not out of fear. Though a little of that lives in you, but out of respect. There's something about these powders and shavings that demands gentleness. They don't belong to your world of cabbage and carrots. They belong to someone else's luxury, someone else's table. You hold the saffron up to the light, red-runge threads that look too delicate to do anything. And yet, you know the stew will change. The bread will change. The moment will change. You drop it into the bowl. The scent intensifies. You do not need to stir it. It moves on its own. The steward does not linger. He watches, waits. When you're done, when the measure has been taken and no more, he steps forward. His hand closes the lid. Not roughly, just finally. The lock clicks shut. The box is lifted from the shelf, returned to its place, somewhere just out of reach. You return to your bench, to your pot, to your pile of parsnips. Nothing has changed, and yet you can still smell them, even after the box is gone, even after you've scrubbed your hands and wiped the board. A whisper of cardamom on your sleeve, a hint of cinnamon hiding behind your thumb, a phantom of saffron hovering near the lip of the pot. It's not enough to satisfy, but it's enough to remember. You stir the stew again. Slower this time. Something feels richer, fuller, even if no one notices but you. The spice doesn't announce itself. It's not a flavor that shouts. It hums, it rounds the edge of the salt. It softens the sharpness of garlic. It warms the barley. Somehow, without changing its shape, you stir and wonder, will they know? Will they taste it? Probably not. They'll say it's better or different. They'll shrug, but you'll know, because you held the spoon. You lifted the lid. You smelled the inside of the box. That's yours. Even if just for a moment. You think sometimes of traveling, not seriously, but sometimes when the fire is quiet and the kitchen is still, and your hands smell like cinnamon hours after the pot has been scrubbed. You wonder what else is out there, not in a loud, earning way. Just curiously, where do saffron threads grow? What tree makes cinnamon bark? What hands crushed this nutmeg? What seas carried it here? You'll likely never see those places, but the taste lingers, and that's something. The rest of the meal is built from what you have. Salt, roots, grease saved from yesterday. Onions browned till they become their own sweetness. Cheese, crumbs, bread ends, all of it familiar. Honest, you return to these with calm hands, not resentful, because the secret of the spices has settled inside you. You know what's possible now, even if it only shows up once a week, or once a month, or only when the steward unlocks the box. Later, long after the kitchen has emptied, after bowls have been wiped, and coals buried and the spoon hung back in its crooked place, you sit by the fire, and from the folds of your sleeve, you lift your wrist to your nose and inhale. The spice is nearly gone, but still there, faint, beautiful. Enough? It begins early in the day. You touch the underside of the pan, just for a moment to check if it's hot, forgetting that fat clings long after the fire has cooled. Your fingers come back slick, your thumb shiny. You wipe it on your apron, but it doesn't quite leave. Not fully. You tell yourself you'll wash properly in a bit, when you're done kneading, or once the stew is stirred, or after the bread is in the oven. But the day stretches on, and the grease stays. Not thick, not dirty dot, just their dot. You try washing, of course, in the basin with cold water, with ash from the hearth rubbed between your fingers, grit grinding into the skin like salt on a wound. You scrub the same way every time, the nails first, then the knuckles, then the creases of your palm. Round and round, over and over. But it never truly disappears. The skin feels tighter after. A bit red, a bit dry, still greasy. You dry your hands on your apron again. They come away damp. But the sheen is still there, soft, persistent, quiet, like a film of memory. You don't always remember how it got there. Maybe it was the roast, the one turned slowly on the spit, dripping over the coals in steady rhythm. Maybe it was the pan of onions fried in lard until they turned brown and sweet and stuck to everything they touched. Maybe it was yesterday, or the day before. Doesn't matter. Grease finds you, even in your sleep. You wake and feel it. That softness on your hands, your cheeks, your scalp. You run your fingers through your hair and realize it's there too. Not heavy, not gross. Just present. You smell like cooking, which is to say, you smell like food and warmth. And work. You wipe your hands on the apron without thinking. The same patch. Always low on the right side, where the cloth is now darker, shinier, shaped by repetition. You sometimes wonder what it would say if it could talk. Probably nothing. Poetic. Just again. You laugh softly at the thought. Then press your hand there once more. The grease shifts, but doesn't leave. It's part of the apron now. Just as it's part of you. It's the pan's fault, really. The flat iron one, wide and temperamental. You pour in a spoonful of fat and hear it hiss loud at first, then quieter as it spreads. You place the meat in gently. Spits. You flinch, but only slightly. You've learned not to jump too much. You reach for the lid, half cover the pan, and stir from the side. Still, some hits your wrist. Tiny sparks of warmth, grease, airborne, marking its claim. You wipe your arm on your sleeve. Another spot claimed, it's not unpleasant. That's the strange thing. It's not sweet, or sharp, or floral, just there. A low scent that lives behind. Your ears, along your collar, in the strands of your hair. It smells like the hearth, like browned butter and roasted things. Like days spent over coals and weeks spent with no break. Some days it makes you feel proud. Other days it just makes you feel tired. But you never resent it because you know what it means. It means the pot was full, the pan was used. The meal was made. It means the stew thickened and the beans softened and the crust got that shine only animal fat can give. Grease is not luxury, but it is proof. Proof that you've been near food, that you helped bring it into being. You hold your hand up to the light. It glistens faintly. You nod to yourself. By midday, your hands have changed. The fingerprints have a softness now. Not from age, though age comes always, but from constant touch. From oil, from steam. From rubbing your own hands dry with a cloth that's never fully clean. You run your thumb along the rim of a bowl. You feel the texture of bread as you press it. You pinch a bit of dough and just know how it's coming along. The grease teaches you things you couldn't learn clean. No one comments on your hands. They notice the meal, the bread, the stew, the pie, if there's time, but not the hands behind them, and certainly not what those hands feel like by the end of the day. That's all right. You didn't do it to be noticed. You did it because someone needed to eat, and someone had to make that happen. Grease was the price, and you paid it. Later, after the day's noise settles, you sit. The fire is low. The dishes are stacked. Your hands rest on your lap, still greasy, still carrying the scent of cooking. You press your palms together and feel the heat between them. Not hot, just warm. Like a memory. You close your eyes. The kitchen breathes around you. You breathe with it. The grease will be there in the morning. But for now, you don't mind. Not at all. It starts with a flicker. Low light through the open mouth of the clay oven, not blazing, not boastful, just glowing in a way that feels almost private. The kind of light that doesn't want to be noticed too quickly. The kind you crouch to. See, slow and steady. The way one approaches a sleeping dog. You squat in front of it now. Knees creaking, heels lifting just slightly off the floor. You feel the gentle pull in your thighs, the weight in your lower back. You've been here before. Many times, watching, waiting. Inside, the loaf is swelling. Softly, quietly, unsure it isn't golden yet. Not browned, not crisp, but it's pitch becoming. You lean in just a little closer. You wait. The heat from the oven doesn't scald. Not this far out. But you can feel it brushing your face, a dry, steady warmth that settles just along your cheekbones and the tip of your nose. It doesn't move in gusts or waves. It just hangs there, constant and quiet. Like an old companion who doesn't need to say anything to make their presence known. You squint into the opening. The bread is rising slowly, like it's remembering how to stand. The dough has taken shape. Not quite domed, not quite ready, but no longer limp. You smile a little. It's trying, and so are you. It's quiet in the kitchen now. No chopping, no clattering. Just you and the oven, and the faintest crackle of fire. You hear the occasional hiss as something within the loaf shifts, perhaps a pocket of steam breaking through the crust, or a bubble of air deciding it's time to stretch. You tap your fingers against your knee. Once, then again, you consider standing, walking, busying yourself with something the way you always do when a task gives. You too much stillness, but you don't. You stay crouch. You choose the stillness. You notice it at the edges. First, a subtle change in color. Not golden, not yet, but something warmer than pale. It's a kind of shift that only the eye trained by hunger can spot. Someone else might miss it. You don't. The crust begins to firm up. The sheen of the dough dulls slightly, replaced by a faint, developing matte. The lines you cut into the top earlier start to widen, little cracks forming like tiny valleys. You lean forward, nose nearly in the smoke. It smells like effort and flour. And time. You could do something else. You know that? There's always something else. Another pan to scrub, another surface to wipe, another pile of spoons to sort by size and wear. But you don't move, because hunger has its own logic. It quiets the mind in a way nothing else can. It makes you still, makes you wait, makes you pay attention to things you might otherwise rush past. You rest your elbows on your knees, your chin in your palm. You watch the bread rise like it's the only thing in the world that matters, because right now it is. The crust is beginning to curl ever so slightly at the corners. It pulls away from the stone just enough to make. You wonder if it's ready, but you know better. You've pulled too many loaves too early, touched too many insides that sagged and stuck to your fingertips. Bread knows when it's done, and it doesn't lie. You sniff the air. It's deeper now, richer. No longer just flour and fire. Now there's warmth behind it. A faint sweetness. A toasty note that makes your stomach shift. Still, you wait. Still, it bakes. Still, you crouch. You lift the peel slowly. Not to pull the loaf, just to lift it, barely, and peek underneath. The base of the bread rests against the hot stone. Darker now, but not too dark. You set it back down carefully, as if you were placing a sleeping child back into bed. You touch your thumb to the edge of the oven opening. It's too hot. You pull away and rub it on your apron. You look again, still not yet. Almost, your mind wanders. The way it always does when you wait. You think about other loaves from better kitchens. Loaves with eggs and milk and spice. Loaves baked by hands smoother than yours. By people who didn't need to crouch to see their work rise. You think about the first time you watched someone bake, how magical it seemed, how impossible that dough could become something solid, something nourishing, something proud. You smile at the memory. Then your stomach rumbles, and you come back to now. It's subtle, no trumpet, no fanfare, just a smell, a precise smell, like toast. But rounder, fuller, the scent of the crust deepening just enough to tell you. Now you reach. For the peel, you slide it under the loaf. It gives a little resistance, a soft crunch, a gentle scrape. Then it lifts. You tilt it toward the light. The bottom is brown, not black. The top is golden. The cuts have opened wide, and the inside has puffed in places you hadn't expected. It's ready, not perfect, but ready. You carry the loaf to the board, the peel wobbling slightly as you walk. You set it down gently, not like treasure, not like a trophy, but like something you've waited for. You press a fingertip to the crust. It crackles softly. You tap it. It sounds hollow. You breathe and you let yourself smile. Fully this time. You won't cut it yet. You know better. Bread needs rest, needs silence, needs time. But you stay beside it, watching steam escape in thin wisps from one of the cracks. You rest your hand on the table beside it. You don't touch the loaf again. Not yet. Just let it be warm. Let it be enough. Let it remind you that sometimes, just sometimes, waiting works. It's quieter now. The bowls are mostly empty. The spoons rest awkwardly on their rims, stained with stew and smudged by fingers that didn't quite bother to wipe them clean. A few crusts remain, the kind no one wants to finish, not because they weren't good, but because fullness comes in stages. Chairs scrape gently, boots shift. People lean back with the sigh of the fed. No one says thank you. You don't expect them to. You hear it as they rise. The scrape of benches, the soft murmur of voices, not gratitude, not exactly, just remarks, too much pepper today. The onions were stronger than usual. The broth was thinner last week. The bread was softer yesterday. The cabbage was cut too thick. You listen as you gather the bowls. You don't flinch. In fact, you nod. Because this is how you know they noticed. It's a strange language, really. A culture built on what wasn't perfect. You don't hear delicious. You don't hear well done. You don't hear thank you. But you hear everything else. And in that, there is proof. Proof that the food was eaten. Proof that it was considered, tasted, weighed. They had to care. To criticize, you wipe a smear of broth from a bowl with the edge of your thumbs. Still warm. Still enough. You lift the pot with both hands. It's heavy, but only because of the metal, not because of what's inside. Because there is nothing inside. No stew. No grain. No bit of root left stuck to the bottom. They scraped it clean. You can tell. Someone probably used bread as a sponge. You tilt it anyway, watching for the last drop. You hear it. Plop. One drop, thick and slow. You smile. This, too, is praise. Once the dishes are cleared and the room begins to thin, there's a different kind of quiet. Not the tired quiet before a meal, not the busy quiet of preparation, but the stillness of satisfaction, of bellies full and conversations slowing. The sound of people stretching, loosening belts, letting their eyes drift downward in thought. You sit, briefly. You feel your feet again. You notice your back. You glance at the spoon you used all morning, still resting on the board, like it deserves a rest. 2. You don't speak, but inside, you exhale. You weren't always good at hearing them. At first, every remark felt like failure. Not enough salt. Your heart would sink. Too dry? You'd avoid eye contact. Too spicy. You'd replay your choices in your head until nightfall. But time teaches you things. Like how silence isn't always a compliment. And how grumbling, oddly, is a kind of familiarity. They complain because they trust the food to be worth commenting on. They don't ignore it. They don't push it away. They come back. And that's something. Even when it's empty, you still scrape. It's ritual, more than necessity. The ladle makes a hollow sound against the bottom of the pot. You run it around the edge once, not for food, just for closure. You tilt the pot and let it rest against the stone. The last streak of stew clinging lazily to the side. It's not much to look at, but you'll remember what it was. That's enough, sometimes. There's a crust. Sometimes a spoonful left at the very edge. Sometimes, if you're lucky, someone was full before finishing. You gather the bowls, fingers dipping gently into their centers, checking for remnants. Today, not much. A half-chewed piece of carrot. A crust someone gnawed but didn't finish. An onion ring flattened to translucence. Nothing appealing. Which means you did your job. You imagine it. Sometimes, what it might sound like if someone said it plainly. This was wonderful. Thank you. How did you make this taste like more than it is? But you don't need it. Not really, because you've learned to hear other words. The ones they don't say. The ones buried in the scraping of spoons and the licking of fingers. The ones hiding in muttered complaints about too much garlic. Because only a good meal can be too garlicky. You wipe the bowls before washing them. One cloth for the grease, another for the crumbs. You place each bowl gently on the stack. Each plate like a note in a song you've already memorized. The stack grows. You pause to stretch your back. The ache feels honest. You glance around the empty room. You notice the bread basket empty. The jug half drunk. The ladle resting like a spent night. You smile again. Because the work is never noticed directly, but its absence would be, and that is something close to gratitude. You picture them now, somewhere else, resting, sitting against a wall. Arms folded, feet stretched out. One of them already asleep. Another unbuttoning a collar. A third picking crumbs from a beard. You imagine their comfort. You imagine their breath slowing. You imagine the weight of food settling into the quietest parts of their bodies. And you think, I did that. No one praises the cook, but someone will ask for seconds tomorrow. Someone will request the same meal next week. Someone will remember the stew, even if they don't remember who made it, and that's fine. You don't need your name on their lips. You only need their bellies to be full. Their murmurs. Their small complaints, their cleared plates. That's your applause at last. When all is quiet, truly quiet, you sit with your own bowl. The portion is smaller, but the flavors are all there. You chew slowly. You don't rush. You let the broth linger on your tongue. No one complains now. No one speaks. Just the warmth of food. And the quiet pride of knowing you made it. The fire has died down again. It always does, eventually. What remains is a hushed warmth, a memory of crackles and flame now traded for faint glows and shifting shadows on the stone wall. It's not cold yet, but it will be soon. The pot sits in the center like a sleeping beast. Still large, heavy, its sides are darkened. Not just from today's stew, but from yesterday's. And the day before that, a ring of soot, a permanent reminder of all the meals you've boiled, stirred, and ladled out of its round, iron body. You know this pot, like you know your own hands rough, hot in some places, worn smooth in others. The way it breathes steam when it's full. And the way it wheezes when it's been scraped clean. There's something solemn about this moment. Not quite sadness, not quite peace, just stillness. The clatter of bowls has faded. The echo of chewing, of slurping, of quiet thanks is now tucked into the walls. Someone might be snoring in the next room already. The dogs aren't begging anymore. Even the spoon rests at an angle in the bottom of the pot, exhausted, and yet, your work isn't done. You shift your weight and squat low, the joints in your knees crackling louder than the embers. The cauldron is large, but familiar. You've lifted it so many times your body knows the rhythm. One hand on the lip, one on the thick handle near the base. You tilt slowly, feeling the sluggish weight of what remains inside shift downward. There's not much left, no real food, just remnants. The heavy wooden spoon slides to the edge and stops with a soft clunk. You reach for it, fingers brushing the grain of the handle. It's warm, a little sticky. The kind of stickiness that comes from starch and smoke and time. You hold it up to the firelight, and its end is blackened just slightly. That's new. Or maybe it's always been that way, and you've only now noticed. You lower it again, and begin to scrape. It's not a pleasant sound, not musical or soft, but there's something oddly grounding in it. A quiet, persistent shar rk, ... shar rk ... Shirk like a mouse nibbling behind the wall, or the sharpening of a dull blade. It's repetitive, predictable. Each motion pulls up a layer of something you didn't quite serve. Bits of barley hardened into the curve of the bottom. Onion skins caramelized and shriveled. Traces of fat, now slick and glassy. Sometimes the spoon catches and your wrist jolts. Sometimes it glides too easily and you have to press down harder. You feel the resistance. You feel the labor of it, though it's small. Every scrape feels like a question. Will this ever come clean? The scent that rises is a strange one. Not savory, not rotten. Something in between. A whisper of yesterday's broth mixed with the sharp tang of burned crust. It's not a bad smell, but it's not good either. It smells like effort, like something cooked too long and left behind. A tired smell, you mutter. Maybe to the pot, maybe to yourself. You ask it why it does this. You ask it if it remembers the first stew you ever made in it. You ask it if you should even bother it. Doesn't answer. Cleaning this cauldron isn't a single task, it's a process. First comes scraping, then the hot water, then the ash. You know the order, though sometimes you hope there's a shortcut. There never is. You reach for the small scoop of leftover ash from the hearth. Still warm. Dry and fine, like silt from an old riverbed. You toss a bit into the pot and watch it settle over the darkened surface. The ash will help just enough grit to lift the stubborn bits. You pour in a little water from the pitcher. It hisses slightly when it hits a still hot spot. Steam curls upward and dampens your face, carrying the ghost of every vegetable that's passed through this pot. You swirl it gently, then scrape again. The spoon moves differently now. Less resistance, a slow grind, like waking an old memory. You pause for a moment and rest your hand on the rim of the pot. The iron is still radiating warmth, but it's the kind of warmth that won't last much longer. You sigh through your nose and stretch your back, bones murmuring their complaints. And then you begin again. There's a strange calm that settles in now. The world outside has shrunk to just you, the pot, and the soft swirl of water and ash. The kitchen is dark except for the hearth's final flickers. You don't need light. You're not really looking anymore. It's all about feel. You lose track of time. The scraping becomes rhythmicless work, more motion. It hums in your wrist. You feel it up your arm and into your shoulder. Your thoughts wander. You think about nothing and everything. A bit of bread still sitting in the corner. A cracked bowl you need to mend. The way the youngest helper dropped a carrot and laughed, as though it was a miracle. You think about how many times you've done this, how many times others have. Maybe someone hundreds of years ago did the same thing in a pot just like this, muttering to themselves about a stuck piece of parsnip. You feel strangely connected to them, whoever they were. You don't know their name, but you know their motions. Scrape, stir, pour, rinse, repeat. There's always one. A patch of char that refuses to lift. You aim the spoon just so and dig. Add it gently. No harsh jabs, that won't help. Just persistence. Patience, dot the spoon, circles. The ash grits, the water swirls. You press, release. Press, release, dot eventually. Something gives. A tiny flake pulls away and floats upward like a forgotten leaf in a pond. You blink, realizing you'd been holding your breath. Sometimes that's all it takes. A little time, a little pressure. Little letting go. You lift the pot gingerly now as it's grown heavier with water. You tilt it toward the slop bucket, guiding the murky water down the lip. A line of gray ash traces the flow, and small bits cling to the edge like barnacles. The pot exhales as the last of the water leaves it. Empty now. Not clean, not yet. But emptier. Lighter. You set it down and stare at the inside. Better, not spotless. Not shining, but better. There's still shadow and stain, but it no longer feels like failure. Just history. Use you run a cloth around the rim. The heat is fading now, replaced by a quiet cool. Your hands are damp, your fingernails darkened with soot and broth, and yet you feel ... accomplished, not proud, not triumphant, just settled. Sometimes you speak aloud. The others have gone. No one hears. So you speak to the pot. You thank it. You scold it. You wonder how many more meals it will hold before it finally cracks. You imagine burying it someday, giving it a rest after all these years, but not yet. Not today. You tap the spoon against the edge, a soft knock. It's your way of saying goodnight, of letting it know you're done for now. You wrap the pot in a cloth, not to dry it, but to cushion it from the cold air. It rests on the shelf like a curled-up cat drowned, worn, quiet. You place the spoon beside it, handle up, blade down. A pair reunited. The fire is nearly out. You don't bother stirring it back to life. Let it sleep. You wipe your hands on your apron and let them hang limp at your sides. The air smells like broth and iron and ash and work. You don't feel hungry. You don't feel tired. Just ... quiet. Outside, the wind brushes against the shutter. Inside, the pot cools slowly and the last echo of your scraping fades into the wood. And in that silence, everything feels enough. It doesn't happen quickly. The quiet creeps in slowly, as if it were shy, waiting just beyond the threshold until the last spoon lowers and the final scrape of trencher against bowl finishes its work. At first, there's still chewing, swallowing. A cough here, a sigh there. Someone murmurs to someone else, but it's not about the food anymore. It's about how full they are, or how cold the wind felt that morning, or how tomorrow they'll have to fetch more firewood. And then, silence begins to settle. Not total silence, but a change, a softening, a downward slope in the rhythm of the room. The kind of quiet that doesn't demand attention, but simply happens. You know this moment well. You wait for it. You count on it. Not because it's dramatic or important, but because it's yours. A breath between the work and the cleaning. Between the heat of the hearth and the cold of the night. You don't sit right away. First, you wipe your hands. You move a pot to the edge of the table. You fold a cloth not for any real reason, except that it feels unfinished otherwise. You move like the quiet itself, slow and nearly invisible. And then, finally, you sit. The bench is hard and uneven, but you've long stopped noticing. You perch near the edge, your weight tilted just slightly forward. If you leaned back, the wood would creak. If you shifted, you might disturb the piece. So you don't. You sit with your elbows on your knees, or maybe your hands in your lap. You forget, even as you're doing it. What you do know is that you're still. At last, you hold a small cup. It isn't fancy. A plain clay vessel with a thumb dent near the lip. It fits your hand the way old shoes fit your feet, perfectly flawed. Side, something warm lingers. Maybe weak ale, maybe herbal broth. It doesn't matter. The warmth is the point. Not the flavor. You lift the cup slowly. Not because you're savoring it, but because there's no need to rush. Not now. The room is not empty, but it feels full. In a different way now, not with noise or activity, but with breath. Deep, slow, satisfied breath. The servants and helpers are still seated. Some of them leaning into their elbows, some staring at the table, some already beginning to nod off with heads cocked awkwardly to one side. You can hear someone snore softly like a cat purring on the other end of the bench. No one talks. No one needs to. Every belly is filled. Every throat soothed. Every hand that needed to lift something has had a chance to rest. The table itself looks like a battlefield of crumbs and spent napkins. But you don't mind. You don't see the mess. You see evidence. That something was done. That something was given. There are streaks of gravy hardened onto the wood like brushstrokes. A scatter of peas at the far end, untouched. The crust from someone's bread, set aside like a secret kept. All of it remains behind, not because no one noticed, but because everyone had enough. It's not a feast. It never is. But they were fed, and now they are quiet. Your gaze drifts across the table's surface, not really focusing on anything, just resting there. The crumbs begin to look like constellations. Tiny, golden, scattered flecks that glint when the firelight tilts just right. A smear of lard stretches out like a comet tail. A dark spot of dried wine pools like a midnight moon. You trace the patterns lazily with your eyes. 1, 2, 3 crumbs in a line. A little cluster in the corner. A single crust round and thick like Saturn's ring, if you'd ever seen. Such a thing. You don't move to clean them yet. Not just yet. There's something comforting in their presence. They are proof that the work you did mattered, that it reached someone, that it filled more than pots and bellies filled time. The day had shape because of it. You lean back, just a hair. The bench doesn't creak. It just sighs a little. The fire is burning low. Now, it's more glow than flame, more orange than red. The wood is almost entirely coal, sunk down into itself, gently pulsing like a heart in sleep. You feel the warmth in your cheeks, in your knees, in your palms, when you rest them near the cup. But it isn't the hot kind of warmth, the kind that stings or sears or boils water. No, it's the other kind. The kind that sits beside you like a friend who says nothing at all. But doesn't leave. It clings to the air, to the corners of the hall, to the curve of your shoulders beneath your work apron. It even clings to your hair, damp with sweat, and then cooled, and then warmed again. You breathe it in. That quiet warmth. That earned warmth. It's different from the rush of the cooking fire. That heat overwhelms, demands, exhausts. This one just stays. And for now, you stay with it. There is something peaceful about being invisible. You're not the center. You're not being spoken to. You're not being needed. No eyes are on you, not for questions, not for more servings, not for praise, and certainly not for blame. You are a ghost of the meal, now. A shadow behind the feast, and you like it that way, because in this moment, you get to see without being seen. You notice the little things others miss. The way one helper rubs her thumb in circles against the table's edge, slow and steady. The way the old man's chest rises and falls like a steady tide. The way someone's foot rests on another's. Foot, not out of affection, but out of accident, neither of them moves. It's all stillness. But it's alive, like a field after the harvest. or snow before it's touched. You can feel it happening in stages. First, your shoulders drop. Then your spine releases one vertebra at a time, like easing fingers from a clenched fist. Your hands are still sore, but not in a sharp way, just the dull hum of having done enough. Even your feet begin to feel like part of the floor, not stuck, not trapped, just rooted. You let your breath lengthen. You don't mean to, it just happens. The kind of slow exhale that slips out before sleep, that lets the chest hollow and the ribs fold in. Gentle as moss. The cup grows lighter as you drink, but you don't hurry. Each sip is small. Ritual, really. Not thirst, not hunger. Just the motion of being alive without needing to do more than that. The room has its own music now, not the clang of pots, not the rush of boiling water, not the slap of kneaded dough. This is different. This is the clink of a spoon as it slides to the floor unnoticed. The rustle of wool as someone shifts on the bench. A slow drip from the ceiling beam where melted frost still finds a path down. Into the clay basin you placed earlier. A cough, a swallow. The pop of a coal. The creak of wood as it cools. You listen without trying to. You've heard these sounds 1,000 times, but never the same way twice. They change with the meal, with the season, with the mood of the room tonight. It's quiet, not somber, not sleepy, just content. You wonder, briefly, how many more evenings like this you'll get. But then you stop wondering, because this one is here. And it's enough. Eventually, your body reminds you there's more to do. Not urgently, not harshly. Just a gentle nudge in your lower back, a twitch in your calf, a whisper of cold around your ankles. You'll need to sweep, to stack the bowls, leave, to put away what little remains, if anything does. But not yet, not this. Breath. You close your eyes not to sleep, but to listen better, to feel your place in this moment. The way your weight presses into the bench, the way the cup fits your hand, the way the warmth hums low in your bones. There are so few moments like this in a cook's day. Moments with no flame, no knife, no ladle, no orders. Just presence, so you take a second breath, and then a third, and the room breathes with you. The table in front of you is littered, but somehow beautiful. A still life of after. Of enough, you imagine cleaning it. Wiping the crumbs into your palm. Lifting the platters. Folding the cloths. But in your mind, you move slowly. Reverently. Like tending to a sacred space. Because, in some way, it is. This table has held hunger and laughter and silence. And now, rest. You wonder how many elbows have leaned here over the years. How many tired hands. How many prayers muttered under breath, or not at all. You reach out and touch the wood. Just once. Just to feel its roughness beneath your fingertips. It doesn't matter if it's clean yet. What matters is that it served its purpose, just like you. Your cup is nearly empty now. A small puddle clings to the bottom like a secret kept just for you. You don't drink it. Not yet. You hold it in your hands and let the last bit of heat warm your palms. It reminds you of childhood, of holding stones near the fire before bed, of clutching a loaf too hot to eat because you were too cold to care. The warmth doesn't last forever, but it's enough to carry you forward, enough to get you moving again. You hold it a little longer anyway. Eventually, you stand, not quickly, not all at once. First one knee shifts, then the other. Your body remembers how. The bench lets you go with one last whisper. You stretch, but barely, just enough to feel space return to your joints. You press your hand to the small of your back. Not in complaint, just acknowledgement. The cup finds its way to the side table. The cloth you folded earlier now waits to be used. And though the room is still mostly asleep, you move with purpose again. Not the rushed kind, the sacred kind. The kind that says, I was here, I fed them. I saw the quiet that followed, and now. I begin again. Before you start the cleaning, you take one last look around. The embers wink, the table sighs. A servant shifts in her sleep. A crust of bread rests untouched beside a bowl, and the air still thick with warmth and breath. Wraps around your shoulders like a blanket you didn't know you needed. You smile. Not a wide smile, not a proud one, just the small kind. The kind that belongs to no one else but you, because this moment too was yours.